Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's been a while. Almost a full week since I've had this camera turned on. Senior and I decided that we were going to take kind of a vacation away from recording every day and just see how many things we could get done. Small projects, a few large projects, trying to fast track the channel into that narrow RD-6 that much quicker. So I'll give you all a rundown of the things that we accomplished. The largest project was finishing the ceiling under the lean-to on the red shed here. That was most of this last week's work right here. I did the same gray on the ceiling as is on the main roof on the outside, and then the same red along the header, and then on each gable end as is on the walls. Finished off with white trim, and we put the white trim cladding to match the posts on the bottom of the header that runs all the way across, so no more birds nesting on the header and in the soffits and causing a mess, and it makes for a really nice finished look under here. So that was a huge project we knocked out of the way. As I record this, it is June 19th, and looking back in the camera roll on my phone, June 21st of last year is when they first started drilling holes in the ground to set the posts for the red shed behind me. That lean-to was the final touch. I have nothing more to do to this building, and it's kind of crazy to think a year ago today, none of what is behind me was even there yet. Let's head out to the field, give you all a little green report. This is where we held plow day a few weeks ago. From this vantage point, we can see the backfield greening in just as well as the main up here. And like these taller shoots like this, that's volunteer grass that came back up naturally, but all this shorter stuff, that's all fresh seeding, and getting right down all those little blossoms that are here right at ground level, that's all new seeding. We'll have a few weeds in here that we'll have to chop off periodically over this summer as everything comes in and establishes, but for the most part we've had good slow rain, steady rain on it, and I'm really happy with the way things are progressing out here. Up here where the rock crusher used to live, I got that big heavy duty beat up skid out of here, cut that up yesterday. That's what happened right there. And all those other small bits and pieces, they're all cleaned up, so no more evidence of rock crusher outside at all. Working on back closer to the shop as if I don't already mow enough ditch along the road front. Yesterday afternoon and this morning, I continued my push down this way. Cut a whole lot of brush out, finished knocking it down up to the road, and I'll finish cleaning this little wooded pocket over here. I'll leave most of the mature trees. I'm just taking the scrubby stuff out, but 10 or so years ago when I planted these spruces, they were all out by themselves, and I got 3 of them open back up. As you can see down here, it is really encroached in around them. Here's another one. Be a little bit easy to miss with all these little popple shoots coming up. So got a lot more work to do up through here, but little by little we're mowing over a 1/4 mile of ditch front already between here and the other side of the hill, but I have fun doing it. Let's go up to the main place now. Okay, the narrow RD-6, serial number 2H1768. That puts it at a 1936 model year. Now, let's go to a viewer question for a segue. Kevin Schroeder says, I started thinking about you working on the narrow gauge number 2H1768. Are you going to be able to get that in the shop where you have done all the work on the Super M Preparation H Christine and last but not least 5J1113 the Swamp Angel? Space-wise, with X231 also still living in here, that's a no. Although it would fit through that door and drive on in, but then I also don't have the concrete floor thickness to support the weight of that machine all at once. So we'll do it like we did with 5J1113. The engine could be detached and brought in and worked on. Then the back end could be brought in and worked on. Track frames then could be brought in and worked on. Although for every piece that comes in, an assembly would also have to move out. So at least in the short term, that's going to be a lot of outdoor working, and we will be having to time it with the weather, to work accordingly. And now Kevin's other question, also, any ideas for nicknames for the 2H1768? So for a quick catch up on this machine, I purchased this in 2012 from my late friend Matt. He was only a couple years older than I am now when he died. He was really sick. He'd been diagnosed with melanoma skin cancer, and I purchased this machine from him. And he mentioned at the time that he was really happy that someone like me bought it, and it was always on his bucket list to fix it up really nice someday. And he just said, I know you'll do right by it. And it's been a while. I didn't know that it had the type of engine damage at the time that I know now, and the starting engine had quit on it, so they had been pull starting it. And he was on the old Sprague farm just outside of Cumberland, Wisconsin, and they actually farmed with us a little bit. But yeah, starting engine conked out, and when they pull started it, I think there was liquid in number one cylinder, and he said something made a bang and it smoked and missed, and shortly after that he got sick and was never able to look into it again. And then I purchased it. So it's been here for a while. I got into it then in the summer of 2013, enough to find that, well, it wasn't a sticking injector or sticking injection pump. It was actually a horribly bent rod on number one cylinder, bent so bad that it knocked the skirt off the piston, and it also broke a chunk out of the cylinder liner. So we're gonna have to get into this engine to see, A, is the block still good? B, is the crankshaft still good? There's a whole lot of ways this could go south. I've only ever heard this machine run one time, and that was the rainy morning that we went down and accompanied the semi to load this up and bring it here. We pull started it with one of Matt's larger John Deere tractors that was still on site, and the trucker took a couple of pictures. This is me right after we got it started, and yeah, you can tell by the smoke there's a lot of unburned fuel coming out, and I was kind of looking it over a little bit. Nothing that I did made it any better. So running on 2.5 cylinders, it did climb its way up the back of the step deck trailer, and it was quite wet. The tracks were slippery on the deck, but we managed to get it loaded and chained down in the rain, and then got it the rest of the way here. It's about an hour and a half trip. Pulled it off of the trailer with Senior's then unrestored but yet functional Super M tractor. And yeah, it had quite a few extra things on it. It came with a big LaPlante Choate Road Builder hydraulic blade. Of course, they had huge brackets that blocked you out of working on most of the engine and surrounded the tracks. And it had a pretty neat Cat Factory skid plate on, which I still have. Excellent heavy-duty front tow hook, Cat Factory, which is still here. It'll all go back on. And I just had to take a lot of that stuff off, and the cutting torch was the best way to do it. All those bolts on the track frames were all jammed and rusty and bad anyhow. Also along the way, posed it next to the wide RD-6 for a couple of side-by-side comparisons. It's the same basic tractor, just 1768 here is the narrow or standard gauge, and 2H3072 is the wide gauge. Other than that, same engine, same powertrain. But after learning what was really going on inside this engine, I was forced to just button it back up and let it sit and wait for life to grant me an opportunity to really be able to dive into it. And I think that opportunity has finally arrived. So really no concrete nickname for this tractor yet. For those that knew Matt, I've always referred to it as Matt's Cat or just 1768. But usually you get one of these apart and get it most of the way back together, it'll let you know kind of what it wants to be named. So I think that's what we're going to do. And continuing on with the comments, channel member Forest411 says, here's an idea for the next behind the scenes. What are the plans for the narrow RD-6? Are you tearing it down to do a nut and bolt restoration, or simply fixing the bent and broken engine components to make it a runner? So instead of tying that down in a behind the scenes episode, I decided to open that up and use it for the main public feed because it just so well fits in with the theme of this episode. Yeah, we're going to be into every area of this machine unless we see something in the engine that says stop here. We know we have a lot of problems up front. But the one time that I had this running and I drove it onto the semi-trailer, there was a bearing noise coming from the back end here that was so loud I could hear it over the short stack engine. I could also feel it vibrating this foot plate under my boot. So we've got problems back here as well. Now, I'm not saying that this is a savable unit, and I hate to sound like a broken record because I've been saying that with a rock crusher. We need to see what's going to happen with the flywheels and the main shaft before we proceed. We need to get into the engine on this to see what's what before we think too much about the back end. And everything is savable at the end of the day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should. I kind of created an unrealistic precedent with 5J1113. That was a tractor that if it hadn't been for the YouTube factor, it was way too far gone. I never should have tried to bring that back. I don't regret now that I did, but outside of needing to generate YouTube content, that ship would not have sailed under any other circumstances. And then X231, that's another tractor that it was so rough. In reality, it never should have been brought back. If it wasn't a one-of-one prototype, I wouldn't have even thought about it. So we need to get into this and see what's going to go on. Now, as far as plans for the restoration, I honestly am completely up in the air. You know I'm a patina guy. I look at this crackle. I look at this crackle. I look at all this beautiful crackle, and I just drool. I can't take my eyes off of it. But I do already have the full set of brand new decals for an RD-6. We could make this thing shiny and new, all new lettering, or we could keep the patina and keep all these old Civilian Conservation Corps numbers in the hood. The old CCC tag from the Central Rebuild Shop is going to stay on the block regardless. But it's going to, once again, take me getting into this to decide how far I want to go. And like I said before, these usually have a way of telling me what they want to have done to them. So I hate to be too vague, but that's really where I stand with it. We need to get into it, and then we'll make a plan. So, covered up, put away for the night, weather permitting. We will be starting on this project in the morning. Other things I've also had in the works. I have located what would be an ideal parts tractor for 1768, and it is very nearby. Dare I say, hardly more than a stone's throw from where I'm standing right now. Almost seems too good to be true. I've got that in the works right now. Also, we have an event coming up this weekend that, if all goes the right way, may make for an interesting episode for the main feed. We'll have to see how that plays out first. But you all have been brought back up to speed. I thought it was important to touch all of those prior bases once again. Everyone's current now. You know what's been happening, and you know what's about to happen. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I thank you all for watching. I hope to see you back next time.